welcome back to City Planner Plays, where we are building a brand new modded city. And I am really excited about this. I think this is going to be a fantastic build. If you're new here, I am a city planner that likes to play city building games, and City Skylines is my game of choice. So in this build, we are going to be using a map by Eggsy. It's called Citadelis, but we are doing something a little bit different on this map. I've decided to remove all highways because we're only going to build highways when we need them. In addition to that, we are going to be building a number of small cities and then building a capital for this county or this state, this region. And this is going to be Clearwater County. So I'm really excited to embark on this build. I'm going to do it totally different than my other builds, very different than Verde Beach. It's going to be really the type of build that I've wanted to embark on. Something where each of these communities has their own focus, has their own character, and feels like an entirely different place from the previous one. So thank you for joining me. I hope that you enjoy this, and I am really excited to get going. So now I think it's important to take a look at the mods that I'm using in this particular build because there are a lot of them. So let's quickly take a look at that. So when we go into my settings, you'll see that I have a lot of mods. I have everything from the parallel road tool, advanced toolbar, advanced vehicle options to disable some of the vehicles like the donut vehicle that I don't like. American road signs, I want to auto color my transit lanes. I'm going to use roads for that. I have building themes and a number of them enabled. Camera positions utility, just a little bit of everything. So I'm not going to read all of these to you, but if you want to take a look, I'm going to scroll through them now, and I would encourage you to pause and take a look. I will have this mod set available shortly along with this map, but it's not available just now. Hopefully by the end of the weekend. So the first thing that I would look at would be where would a city be most suitable in this region. And at this point in time, because I've used the 81 tile mod, I can really start wherever I want. I could start at this tip of this peninsula. I could start over here. But I want a place that has good access to the water. I want a place that has natural resources. And unfortunately, because of when I'm starting, you can't really see much of what's going on until we place a road. So I'm going to place a road real quick so we can get an idea of what we're working with. And I do think that this seems like a nice building spot, a nice building pad, a place where we could really start a nice community. And one of the things I like about this is we have these sandy beaches, which opens up some possibilities in terms of tourism in the future down the line. I'm going to make one connection here. Now I am using, in this particular instance, I'm going to pause it for a minute, I'm using this normal local 2-lane road, and I know that that's not going to be sufficient forever, but I'm going to use it for now. But I can't just have one way in. This is a cul-de-sac, and this cul-de-sac is really long. So let's take a look. So this cul-de-sac is 3,700 feet long. So that's over half a mile. If there were an emergency, this would be an absolute problematic situation. So what we're going to do is also build an outlet. Now I'm going to make sure that this outlet meets up with this road at a 90 or as close to it as possible, because this is going to be a high-speed corridor relative to this one, and I want to make sure that I'm not in a place where there's a dangerous intersection here. We only have two. We might as well keep them as safe as possible. So let's look at our signals here. We want to stop the road going into the city and have clear movements on the highway. We're going to do the exact same thing here. I know that this will fail after a while, but for the time being, this should be good enough. So I paused this so we could do a little bit of work on the city. And one thing I know is that we're going to need utilities. So I want to get the utilities away from the people. And I envision this being a really important node within the community. It's going to be a vista. It's going to be a place where people want to be. So knowing that, where else could we build this industrial area and this place where we have utilities? Well, I think this little high point here would be an interesting location for it. Thing is, everywhere around here is good. So we could throw it, by the highway. We could do whatever we want, but ultimately we've got to choose a location. This location is good because it gives us access to water, which I care about. I'm going to have a pumping station right at the end of this road. And we're going to be able to place some of our other infrastructure here as well. So I'm going to have another road coming off here. And I want to make sure that I have sewage treatment. So we have a couple of options. We could have a drain pipe. I do not like that, even if it's the eco one. It says no pollution, but that's not entirely true. It does produce a little bit in the water. So I'm not super interested in that, even though it says zero pollution. Changes the water color. We do have hide it, so I guess I could eliminate that, but I'm going to avoid that. Then we have this inland water treatment plant that does produce a significant amount of pollution, but I'm not worried because this will be an industrial district anyway. So we're going to place that right here, and this will be the start of our public works campus. We need one more thing, and that's power. So we're going to use a coal power plant because it's one of the most cost-effective power plants at the beginning of the game. We could also go with this wind plant. We do have significant amounts of wind available in this little peninsula right here, but I would rather future-proof this. So we're going to place this as well. The nice thing is the power connects to both of those. So we also need to get some water pipes. We're going to place the water pipes underneath the road where they belong. And we're not going to go wild. Maybe we'll just go to this corner here until we know exactly what we're building. We don't even know what the grid is going to be like in this area. And we'll connect up our utility. So we are starting to run low on money. We started this build with $70,000, which isn't very much money. So that's one of the main reasons I have this paused. So if we want to get going, we're going to need to have some zoning. So I am going to build a small district here, and I think what we're going to do is a 15 by 10 grid to start out with. It's a pretty efficient grid. If you recall, Verde Beach is actually 12 by 15. That is incredibly efficient. But we're going to have multiple grids in the city anyway, and we're going to allow deviations like this where it's 18 to occur. That's not a big deal. Whoa. So we're also going to, at some point, look at vistas and try to figure out where we would want these roads to go, where it would be logical, and follow the topography. Now, in this particular area, one of the reasons this is a great starting location is there's not a lot of topography to deal with. So you might wonder what shapes roadway networks, particularly in American cities, and a lot of it has to do with existing or previous horse trails or cattle trails or the Oregon Trail. Oregon. I'm sorry, that's my Wisconsin coming out. So there are reasons why roads exist where they do. It could be that they're parallel to a roadway or a rail corridor. So there are a number of reasons. It could also be that there were two settlements that came together. So I don't want to get overly zealous about creating this monster grid. First of all, we have no money, so we should be realistic about that. And we also it's not going to be in our best interest long term, if we want an interesting city and a realistic looking city, to just make a gigantic grid and hope for the best. So I do have touch it on, and one of the things, or the toggle it tool, and one of the things about this is you can toggle everything from topographic lines all the way to your zoning districts, and you can adjust that all in here. So I have the district icons off, district names are on, notifications are on, grid. So we have that. So speaking of districts, we need to establish that first as well, because in this particular city, we are going to have themes in every district. Unfortunately, we can't do that just yet because we need a population of 800. So we do have the realistic population mod on, and that's going to change the amount of residential that we are building. In fact, we're going to need a ton more than we generally would. So this is going to be interesting. So let's simulate this quickly and let some homes develop. I'm actually going to pause it for 1 second. There's one thing I forgot to do, and that is we currently have our budgets maxed out, and we don't have the money for this. So we don't have the night cycle on right now. So what I'm going to do is just turn down during the day our power and our water, and this should be plenty sufficient. You can see that our availability is out of this world. Now I forgot to put water in this old part of town. or this part of town that I expanded rather. So I'm regretting adding this water pipe here because we don't actually need it. I am going to take the refund. It's not very much money, but it's very necessary. And now we'll get some tax collections, and that's important. So we're starting to see a little bit of commercial demand. So I want to start thinking about that and building commercial accordingly. Now, because we have realistic population, the demand for these districts will be lower. You can see that we've already filled in the areas that we've zoned for residential, so I'm going to continue to build out a little bit further. And I'm keeping a close eye on that budget because we're almost to a point where our budget is balanced. So I'm going to slow this down again because we are starting to have more need for residential. So I've built out this grid. I'm going to go another couple of blocks. We are going to name these streets, but I'm not going to do that just now. I want to stabilize the city first before we start thinking about those kinds of details. Because ultimately, the city, and you see we already have not enough money. So I don't have any money, but what I do have is the ability to continue to zone. So we are going to continue to zone in logical locations where we have the ability to do so. So I can place a couple of industrial properties here and continue zoning in this particular area. So you might see the gaps here and wonder what I'm doing. And what I'm doing is leaving spaces for roads. So I'm basically preserving right-of-way in my mind. I'm also going to remove the zoning outside of the water service area. So I can see that really 4 tiles in, we don't have service anymore. So I can eliminate that. So the other thing I'm going to do is take down my road budget, and hopefully that will help. We do have more industrial demand, so I'm going to continue to build out those industrial spaces. Now I've made a bit of a mistake here. Now there's a couple things I could do. I could cheat and just throw in or use my move it mod. Oh, no, I can't even do that. I'm honestly probably going to need money, and I don't have the ability to take out a loan. So what I could do is something I don't want to do, and that is place residential right here. That will fix my problem. Oh, my problem's not fixing itself. This is getting really ugly. I'm hoping that we get some development soon, but it's not looking promising. I don't know why you'd want to live right here. So, I get it. Okay, little hamlet, that will get us some money. We can fix our power issue. that was ugly for a second there. I was not expecting that. So, all right, I feel good-ish. We're not in a good spot, but we'll get in a better spot soon. So already you can tell that realistic population is having a significant impact on the planning of this city. And one of the big things is there's just a lot of residential demand. And one of the reasons for that is when we take a look at each house. So let's take a look at these homes. The Hickory house has 1 household. The Robin house has 1 household. 1 household. 1 household. So it's not difficult to see what's happening. Now, my assets are all mixed up right now because I don't have the ability to manage themes. But once we get to a population of 800, I am going to turn on themes for the entire city, and this will begin to clean up. But for the time being, it's going to be this weird mix of, that's a downtown looking building, and here's a Taco Bell. So it's a weird mix right now. So I'm adding a bit of commercial in this area, and you might be wondering why I'm doing that. And the main reason I'm doing that is I want to give kind of a node of activity near where people would be coming home from work. So they get out of the factory, they come down here, then go shopping, and then go home. We're going to want to mix in some commercial into neighborhoods too, so that people can walk to things. But for the time being, this should suffice. You also see where we should be building. And along the water here, we have water service. So this would be a fairly logical place to continue our grid. So right here, we have 18 tiles over. I don't want to build on the beach. So I think what I'm going to do is call a mulligan on these homes over here. Sorry, people. And we're going to have to take that land. Now I'm going to extend this road all the way through till maybe about here. And this will be kind of a deviation in our grid as we follow the water. I like that. I like that a lot. So the other thing that we need to think about is our factory district. And we're going to need to expand this at some point. Now we kind of built these factories haphazardly. And if we were going to do this in a realistic way, we would probably try our best not to disturb these factories. So I don't want road guidelines to dictate where I'm placing these, so I am going to use the grid. And I want this road to kind of go right behind the factory, and we can clean up this mess with Move It. If we need to. Truthfully, I don't know that we need to. And I don't want to become overly reliant on Move It if at all possible. Well, maybe just one. Well, and now I've taken out that factory and I might as well have done what I wanted to do in the first place, which is just build this straight. There we go. So you see that the zoning got all messed up here. So there's one way that we could fix that. So we have a couple of tools at our disposal. We have the zoning adjuster, and then we also have this zoning tool set. So I could remove zoning here and that would fix this. We're not going to zone here anyway, and we don't need to prioritize zoning there. And now we have a nice grid again. And I might do that for this entire road because I'm not overly concerned about development occurring off this road. So I click on toggle zoning. Actually, and then I just remove zoning from that little district. Perfect. And you can see that our budget is now balanced. And I'm really pleased with that because now we can spend a little bit more time focusing on building a unique city. So we've got a lot of interesting things happening here with the grid. And I think we're going to try to just fill in naturally with the landscape. And I'm not overly concerned with the grid breaking down here. This is ultimately going to be a place that is not necessarily overly concerned with the type of grid in this particular area. And I think this is going to make it a more unique and interesting transition down anyway. So we do have a lot of industrial demand at this point, so we're going to need to fulfill that. The nice thing about this is as we go about this, we are continuing to build towards our city, which will eventually mean that we can get rid of those power lines. Now I always like to place my power or my water under the road because in real life, if you were going to place a water pipe, you'd want to make sure that you can access it if there's a break. If you don't, you end up with sinkholes in people's living rooms. And you've seen stuff like this happen, or where they're too close to a home, particularly in a hilly area, a house can slide down a hill. So it's one of those things that when you're first building, it doesn't matter to anyone. They just want to save money. But down the line, the ramifications for poor planning can be someone's life. It can be someone's livelihood. And you've got to be a little bit more careful than that. So we currently have no city services, and we've left no space for said city services. We also have no money for those city services. So we're going to start thinking about that a little bit now. So we currently have about 500 people in the city. We want to make sure that wherever we place our elementary school has relatively good access throughout the community. So I'm thinking, so this road right here is our main drag. Let's actually turn on our road names now. So I also noticed that we had random disasters off, and I always like having disasters on. Might as well. So okay, We have a 20-mile-per-hour speed limit on these dirt roads. That's interesting. That's actually something that's being considered in many cities right now as we grapple with kind of some of the fallout of the last year. One of the things that's been interesting is even though vehicular miles traveled has fallen, so that's vehicular miles traveled is the total number of miles driven in a community. Even though that's fallen, we've had accidents remain steady or increase in most communities. So that's a huge concern. And the way that we're tackling that kind of as a profession, along with engineering, is to lower speeds, narrow roads, add in speed humps and bumps and roundabouts, and different sorts of treatments to try to, get a handle on this. This is something that is really terrible. So there are movements like Vision Zero. We're trying to make plans to get to zero pedestrian fatalities, but it's a lofty goal. Oh, and we now have Main. Whoa! I don't know what was going on there. All right, so we have Main Street. We gotta get that fixed. There we go. It's having some weird keyboard issues. There we go. So now we have Main Street. We're probably just going to number these, truthfully, and think about the geographic monument. So this should be Water Street. Okay, so I'm having some weird issues with my keyboard, and I think part of the reason for that might actually be due to Traffic Manager. Can't be 100% certain though. Let's see, Main Street did stick. Okay, so it was actually due to R being a hotkey for this particular first-person camera configuration mod that I have. So always, something new when you're starting on a new city. So now I can type in Water Street. So that would have also impacted Main Street because I have to type in that R, and that it's why we struggled getting that R in there. So we've got that now, and this will be Commerce Way. That does loop around, so we'd want to make sure that Commerce stops here, and that whatever street this is, which interestingly doesn't have a name. Well, I might have to troubleshoot the naming, but for the time being, we've got 3 streets named. But I do like to name the streets. I think it makes the cities feel a little more alive. So we're getting a decent population. So we do need more commercial at this point and more residential. The other thing we need now is a dump. So I think that I'm going to try to finagle this dump over here, right near Water and Commerce. And this will be far enough away from our water source to ensure that there's no pollution. So I think that puts us in a good location there. We are at a point where we have healthcare that is available to us as well. And I probably should have paid a little bit more attention to what we unlocked. So when we got Little Hamlet, we got loans, taxes, campus areas, although we can't build a campus. We got a couple of buildings that we've unlocked. We've got some interesting things. So I do want to look at my budget right now and start to think about taxes. Now I know that I can crank the taxes to 12 without getting anyone all that upset. Now, the tax numbers in this game mean absolutely nothing to me. So I know that there are some videos out there that have gone into the numbers behind the game, but it's a challenging concept for me to wrap my head around. Now, if I tried to explain mill rates, that might be a more challenging concept for other people to wrap their head around. So I will avoid getting into the weeds there. So what I've done now is created this little downtown node. You start to see it forming. And when we can create our districts, this is going to be a very dense area. Not a place where you go to, let's see, Backwater Burger Tacos Sells, JFK. It'll be a place where most of the buildings look like this. So let's speed it up and let things fill in a little bit more, because we need to continue to build this area. So I've got to be really careful with some of these mods because you start to see some of the issues that I'm having where I am, zoning, for instance, is not on here. And that's going to be a continual problem for me. Okay, so we have water service in most of this area, so I am going to zone. We'll go at least 4 in here. And actually, in light of that, we're going to call a mulligan on that road. And we're still having our... Okay, so I had to right mouse click the zoning tool set to reset the zoning, because after I changed the defaults over here inadvertently, you ended up with some kind of craziness as I built new roads. So you're starting to see the roadway network take a more organic shape, but still have a very tight walkable grid that would be easy to navigate if you were from the community. And that's what I'm trying to maintain right now. There's plenty of opportunity to make a gigantic grid. They're very functional, very, very functional. Easy to navigate, but they can be monotonous. And truthfully, in the beginning, I don't think that's how the city would develop. There would certainly be, once there's a lot of demand in the community, a tight grid that forms. And the reason for that would be that it's easy to develop. It's predictable. And that's one thing that developers like is predictability. So this is going to be a downtown square, so I'm going to continue to leave this empty. We're going to plan for commercial in this particular area. And now we're going to revert back to our old grid. All right, Worthy Village. I'm very, very happy to see this because this means not only do we get loans, district specializations, that's the big one, service policies, it's another big one. We get all of these different types of buildings, water usage, the Ghostbusters Afterlife Firehouse. I didn't realize that that's what that was, but there it is. We also get some landmarks. So we get the Winter Market, the Statue of Liberty, interesting, and the Chirper X launch site, which we don't have the requirements for. I'm a little confused as to why we've unlocked that when these other things we haven't. But we're not going to build that anyway, so I'm not going to get overly concerned about that. But what we are going to do is take a look at our policies and go to our themes. So I want to enable theme management for the entire city, and I've set up a number of themes. So for the entire city, the themes that we're going to use is we're going to use Historic American and Brick Downtown. So these particular themes, if I go into the theme manager and I go into Historic American and then I select only things that were included, you can start to see the kinds of buildings that I included within this set. It's kind of historic, traditional, American looking homes. So I really like these. There are other things that we could include in here soon in the future, and we might do that, but for the time being, I want these, and I don't want the international buildings. So these are all the buildings that come with the game, and I've included only buildings that I downloaded in a pack, or in multiple packs, I should say. Plus, I have industrial buildings in here. I have some commercial buildings that will form a strong downtown. So as these buildings level up, you're going to see them start to change. And if we get overly concerned about the way that certain buildings look, like this Taco Bell building, I could certainly eliminate those and allow them to come back in a more historic looking form. Let's see what comes out. And this just feels a lot better to me. So one thing I want to do now that we have a little bit of money, first of all, we'll slow it down, and I'm going to really try my best to not go wild on simming and letting this go forever. I do want to take these main roads and add priority to them, in my mind at a bare minimum, by upgrading them. Now, one thing you'll sometimes see in a city is a 2-lane road that flares out to be a 4-lane road, and that is expansion occurred, right away was dedicated in these historic sections. You didn't have that available to you. So as a result, you end up with some kind of weird stuff happening. where you have a 2-lane road that turns into a 4-lane road. We're probably going to have that happen here. And that's going to kind of emulate a realistic old part of town. So I have another theme that I'm interested in implementing here. And that theme is going to be related to mansions. So as this town is developing, there are a couple of industries that are here, just general industries. And the owners of these industries are going to be very powerful people. They're going to be the movers and shakers in town. And I want to start thinking about where they'd want to live. Clearly, they would want to live in the most exclusive part of town, by the water. So this is going to be the mansion district. Now, this is Clearwater County, and this little area doesn't have a name yet, but I'm thinking of calling this Ashland. So I might call this the Ashland Mansion District for the time being. If you guys have a better name for this, please leave it in the comments. Whoop, Ashland County, that was not what I meant. Ashland. Okay, so I need to set a policy here. So we're going to go into themes, enable theme management for this district, get rid of those themes, and now I have a mansion district theme. And you're going to really like the buildings that come up in here, I think. I am going to place, I just want to be very careful about where I'm placing these. I'm going to give space in between these homes. And we don't have parcels, but this is a way that we can simulate them. And this person is going to be very wealthy and totally fine demolishing that house to build their mansion. So that's what they're going to do. And you see these nice mansions starting to populate that don't have any water. And that's fine. No, it's not. So these will continue to level up over time and get even more and more grand. Holy cow. Everyone's sick. Everyone needs a job. Everyone is a criminal. So maybe we need a police department. Police station. So this is our main street, and this would be a logical place. This is going to be an arterial. Not only does it have the connection to the highway there, so we want to keep this close. We are going to use some eminent domain, understanding how important this is. We're fine placing that there. We also need a firehouse, and if we place this in the downtown area, I'm completely fine eliminating some of these buildings in favor of the firehouse. And that is not the direction I wanted to place that building. There we go. So yeah, I wanted to give prominence to Main Street by placing that building fronting Main Street. So we've got significant employment problems, not enough workers, significant residential demand, and that's because we never filled in this area over here. I'm actually going to hold off zoning entirely here because we need some parks. We have no park space. We also have no healthcare. And I just want to double check one other thing. So I placed this firehouse, $20 a week upkeep, $700. That's a pretty unreasonable number, but I'm okay with it because I'm desperate for money. So we will go with it. So we have this other arterial right here, Holmes Road. And I think I'm going to build one street off from here, one block. And then on a side street, I'm going to place the clinic. And I think that'll be a nice place to place this for a number of reasons. First of all, right now, Ashland, this is one city, but this is a county. And we're going to develop a number of small cities in the area. So we don't necessarily... Ooh, we have power and water problems. Okay, so our power problem at this point, we'll take a look. Yeah, our electricity is low because of our budget. So let's raise our budget up. Take it to 75% because I like round numbers. That'll resolve our power issue, but we still have other issues to contend with. So I talked about adding priority to these main roads. Again, this isn't necessary except for my own mental well-being. We'll upgrade that road. So you can kind of see the beginnings of this area starting to form. So I'm going to add commercial near the hospital. This will kind of protect the residential uses from the sound you would anticipate from these sorts of the hospital. in particular. So this will help out here. Now, I'm excited to see what develops here because now we're finally looking at our themes. And you start to see things changing a bit. You got these nice tree-filled lots with smaller homes. And that to me feels authentic. Older looking homes. This is a nice Victorian. This would be what would have developed back at the start of the community. This neighborhood, in my mind, looks a heck of a lot more convincing than what was popping up, kind of random buildings. And look at this downtown area. Nice commercial area, popping up. Good place to grab a beer and go get some fried chicken afterwards. That's what you're looking to do. I could see this building being a very important building. You get a nice view of this water pump at the end of the road. I'm gonna want to do something about that at some point in the future. I'd also imagine that this is a saltwater bay, and the last thing you'd want would be to be pumping salt water, but it is a game. We will take some liberties and we will roll with it. So I think that we're going to set a goal for the rest of this episode. And I'm thinking that we could get we can get to Boomtown as our milestone. I'm really interested in seeing how big this city needs to get to Boomtown. So we're going to continue expanding this way now. In reality, I think that you'd start to see some interesting development patterns occurring. You'd start to see kind of the grid maybe continue, but homes not being filled in everywhere. So why don't we do a bit of that? So I'm taking this over a total of 4 blocks. And from here, I'm going to start to break down a little bit on that zoning. We have been very tight with our zoning, just zoning everything. But we're going to break down for a little bit and let this city grow in a little bit more organic fashion. It's probably not going to stay like that forever, but I'd love to see some different building forms take shape. So we'll zone in this entire block. But what if we were to just do a couple things like this in here? So we'll throw in some irregular shaped lots. Then maybe here we'll maybe even start to break things up a little bit more. Oh yeah, I like that. This is going to be interesting to look at for the time being. Often, particularly in these old areas, you'd probably expect that people would want to have the ability to work the land a little bit, or just be a little bit more secluded if things were already platted out. They wouldn't build a house directly next to their neighbor if they didn't have to, unless the developer forced them to, because they had some sort of phasing plan. But we're not really thinking about a phasing plan right now. We're thinking about organic growth in this entire area. And look at these homes these are just wonderful assets. So I do want to give some shout outs to some of the asset creators that I really leaned heavily on in this particular build. First of all, this is an Eggsy map. I mentioned that earlier. I love this map. Eggsy did a great job. King Leno, I've leaned on heavily. And there are a number of other asset creators. When I release the set, I will be a little bit more transparent about that. You see some other creators. Hold on. Okay, a couple other creators I want to highlight. So we have Bowformer, Find Build. I mentioned King Leno. Used a lot of King Leno's commercial buildings for a lot of the downtown type buildings. Find Build is the number one person that I pulled from. Death Quack is another one. So the trailer park theme and some of the suburban buildings, I got those from them. And there are a number of other builders, or another number of other asset creators, Mr. Mason, that I've pulled from, and I'm really excited about this. I think it's going to be a really unique project because we're being really careful about the assets that we're using. So I'd say that this is the exact opposite of Verde Beach, in that we're going to be very deliberate with our building styles and not use any buildings that came with the game, if at all possible, except for things like schools and medical clinics. We could certainly avoid that, but I'm not overly concerned. I'm just trying to look. We had some trailers popping up in here. Not really interested in that. So if we could eliminate those trailers, I would be happier. We also have some buildings. This looks like a post-war building. That's not part of the set. So, this is going to be kind of a constant battle in this old part of town until all these buildings upgrade. And a way to start getting those buildings to upgrade is to add parks and plazas. And we are just about to reach the population milestone that will get us there. Oh gosh, this is we finally hit it. That was painful. We got tiny town. So we have all of these industries that are opening up to us, parks and plazas, schools, all these different policies. We have paths that open up. And this is exciting because we're going to want to have a main park in the city. In fact, a bit of regret is maybe that we haven't left that space already, because I do think that would be something that we'd want to plan for up front. So we are going to think about that and reserve some space. Now, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves and completely forget about this. So I think we're going to go, why don't we go 6 blocks? So 30, that would be, this right here would be 4 blocks. We'll go another 15. Now we have a nice 6-block park. Actually, I might take it a little bit further even. I like this little area out here that jets out. I'd like to work that into the park as well. So this is going to be an important area in the future. Sometimes you end up with roads getting built before things get built, and this is going to be one of those situations where that's occurring. And the rest of this area that you see right here will be really a feature park for the community in the future. We'll have a nice beach area with a great view of the industrial area. So maybe not ideal, but it's what we're working with. So we have utilities service over here, so I am going to fill in this zoning now. Residential is our biggest need. We have a little pocket of commercial here. We probably want to add another one through here. Actually, I might add some right here so that people in this area could walk to a restaurant. We'll have another node, a commercial activity, kind of in this corner, Raymond Mason Way, and Holmes Street. I don't like that at all. Let's call this Church Street. And the reason we're going to call it Church Street is, I think one of the things that you'd see in a community is churches really starting to, at least in American cities, you would see a church being a really important part of a town. So we have a couple of different church assets available to us, but I think I want a place. We don't have death care available to us just yet, which is unfortunate because I think I want to think about a cemetery before I place the church. Well, I can't. I need a population of 2,200 to need death care, which is a blessing in disguise. So let's just focus on that church again. We are going to put this church directly on Church Street. It'll just change the orientation of this church campus. But this will be a very important part of the community, and we're going to want to think about the views from all angles in the future when we're thinking about density. So one of the things I could see here is a deviation in the roadway network as we build around this church. Maybe some sort of plaza developing around this. So I did have zoning here for commercial. I'm going to bump that out to the outside. We might just ring it around this future plaza. Yeah, that's good. That's going to be really nice in the future. The nice thing is our water coverage almost reaches out there. We're a little ways off, but we have a bit of a deviation in our roadway network, so that's going to change how we develop this. So I'm calling lots of mulligans here as I think about the best way to make all of this line up. And what I think I might do is actually just start to flare that road back out. And you know what? This could be, we could emphasize the view of the church right here by having this be a road that terminates right at the church. That would be interesting to me. Especially since this will be a park. That'll be the first thing you see as you come down this road. Look at those views. View of the church, view the mountains in the background, and a nice place to recreate and have lunch there in the future. That'll be wonderful. Wonderful. All right. So I am noticing that I inadvertently left a bit of housing here. So we're going to use eminent domain and take all of these. I'm sorry. Because we want a very small park in this area. Now I could go two routes here. I could actually make my own park, or and to do that I would be defining my own little park space. I might actually do that. I'll come back into here. We will add a main gate. We're going to make it a small main gate because we don't really have a lot of space. Put that right in the center. And let's think about this park space. We don't want this to be a place where we're charging people. We just want this to be a place where you can walk through and kind of just enjoy the area. Oh, I have anarchy. I haven't used anarchy in so long at this point that I forgot how nice it is to be able to do some of this stuff. It's so nice. I love it. So we're going to clear the trees that are in there, and I think that we are going to upgrade the roads in this area. Let's see what we have. So rather than using network extensions, I downloaded the Vanilla Plus Plus pack, and I know that this works a lot better for some people, and I think that's one of the reasons I thought it might be nice to grab this pack. One of the things that makes this so nice is rather than being a mod, it's a bunch of assets. So you don't have to worry about mod compatibility. It's an asset. So just a much nicer configuration in that regard. So a lot of these haven't unlocked yet. So I think we're just going to upgrade this. Oh, and destroy all of our paths. So maybe it's for the best that we're upgrading this right now. Kind of urbanize this commercial area, especially since it's taking out half of our buildings. So seems like a good thing. And at this point, we could continue using dirt roads, but our community is getting big enough. We might start to deviate from that at this point. That looks terrible. So move it is enabled, but we don't need to get crazy. We can clean things up like this. Oh, that's so wonderful. I love that so much. So let's add a little bit to our park. What can we add there to make it worthwhile? Clearly an info booth's probably overkill. Park Plaza won't fit. We might not have a lot here. It might just be a kind of a place to hang out. We'll get some bonus points for benches and whatnot, although we already have them everywhere. So maybe it's just a small cafe. And I need to turn off anarchy because otherwise I'm going to destroy a bunch of stuff. I don't even like that much. So we're not going to do much here. I think that we're going to do some trees. We are going to copy these so we can duplicate these and try to mirror these so that we're at least consistent. And then let's think about some landscaping. We haven't really done any landscaping yet, which is something that if you're someone who's watched the channel before, you know that I love landscaping. If you haven't, welcome to my landscaping madness. So we'll just do a leafy tree here. You start to see that I have space already occupied, so I will throw on some anarchy. So that is Shift P. And these aren't perfect, and that to me is a reminder I have prop line anarchy, or prop line tool rather, and I need to use it. So that is something that I will try to remember. There are all these mods that I have available to me that I am so used to not having available to me. And it's funny, I said I have that one, but it's not activating. So I'll have to check that out. Just going through here, trying to make it in a more interesting place. Okay, and Shift P, remember to turn prop anarchy off. We have regular anarchy on, we'll turn that off as well. Now we have this little area that, to me, feels good, except that that's not centered. That feels bad. So, see if we can fix that up just a hair. Oh, that is nice. Perfect. So this could be a place that if you worked at State City or Sky Trust, you could sit down here for lunch at a bench. It is not at all going to help this area level up though, because if you look at the entertainment value, it's 100. That's bad. But this, oh, it looks terrible still. You just need to let it go. I'm probably making it worse. That's what I do. So, I can't let it go. I can't let it go. I can never let it go. Yeah, I just made it worse. Nice thing is that I have picker, and I can just add that back. So that's good. Okay, so I want to think about some pre-built parks as well. You look at our land value and if we look at our land value right now, it's probably very low. Yeah, it's $12. 12 money. So not good. And if we look at our, probably something a little more important in my mind is our happiness, and it's bad. So why don't we sneak in some parks here and get those planned ahead of time? We probably should have left some space here. We're not going to be able to do that now unless we start calling lots of mulligans and destroying places all over the place. I really would prefer to not do that. So we have a couple of small parks, and a dog park might be nice as well. I've mentioned before that developers love dog parks. They get everyone jazzed. Everyone loves the ability to walk their dog. I could see there being that one dog park and people driving to it, which is just, I've done it. So, I get it. I've done it. So, we have that. Now, another thing that we do have in this build, besides these row homes, which apparently are a park asset, gotta get rid of that. We have parking, which is something we could consider, but this town is so small that I don't think it would be a very significant concern, particularly in an older area like this. I just don't see that being something that's a priority to people. Goodbye, Dunkin' Donuts. We want a historic building. We do have this gas station, and I'm kind of okay with that being right there. I'm not okay with Dunkin' Donuts. I don't really love this either, this general store. I think we'll eliminate both of them. We're going to start thinking more and more about the buildings that are spawning here. So one of the things I was very careful not to do is include many of these small 1x1 lots. I think we're going to clear some of these out. Do a little bit of cleanup before we end this. And I do think it's going to be challenging to get to the population threshold I was initially thinking about without just mono-zoning all over the place. Just monolithic swaths of residential zoning everywhere, which I could do. Maybe to get there, we will do that a bit. I'm trying to be very efficient with our water system and not overdo it. And I think we're in a good spot. We're going to plan this neighborhood here. We have a nice park in this area. We should take a look at our schools. School capacity is good. We have no high school capacity and not enough money to build one, but we still need one. And we're losing the ability to have a centrally located high school. So I do want to think about that a little bit. And I think that having one kind of in this area might speed it up so we get enough money to do that. Otherwise, why don't we actually just take out a loan? That's pretty rational that a loan would be taken out for high school anyway and bonded over a number of years. And then that would be assessed, maybe 30 years to homeowners. I think we're going to try to build out this campus a little bit too. What would be rational here? So I think the nice thing about a grid is you can break it up. So we're going to take away some things here and try to build out a little bit of a high school campus. No, we don't have some of the assets I was hoping for. And some aren't unlocked, like the community pool that would make a great addition. So what I might do is just leave this empty for the time being. And we'll build around this area and know that this grassy field is our school site. Maybe for the time being, to make it feel like a school site, we will add in some paths. You can always remove a path in a school site, so I'm not overly concerned about that, if you're the school district anyway. The city comes in, and says, we're going to take over your path, the school district says, no way. You aren't doing anything within our property. You might not even be able to drive through our property. So I'm trying to provide a couple of direct connections to places that kids might want to come from. Truthfully, this might be sufficient for what we need in this area. Let's put a couple of larger trees, some leafy trees out here. Just thinking of places that students might want to be able to sit and grab some shade. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense to me. I continue to build these dirt roads. It's a force of habit at this point, but I know that we have trails here and we're going to destroy them all. That stinks. Unless I turn on anarchy, then I think I can get away with it. Nope, can't get away with it. So, might as well think about that up front. Oh, that's much better. All right, so now we've got these paths through here. We need some more landscaping. That's not enough landscaping. So, let's get some privacy. So this is my first episode in this build, and there's some things that I'm working out the kinks of. And prop line tool, like I mentioned, is one of those things. I would generally use that to fill in this area and to build that kind of row of trees, but I don't have it available for whatever reason right now. Yeah, this creates a nice little plaza where you could see someone sitting and hanging out. Another thing you could do to make it even better would be, so we could go through and add a table or two in here. And oh, that's a very campsite looking table. So maybe something a little more, yeah, university table. Add a couple around here so that students could have a place to meet with their friends, to study. And I'm trying to place them both in the shade and in the sun. That's nice. Look at that. Look at this. Can you imagine living in this house, being able to walk across the street to the high school? Your friends get done with school and you walk into your house. That's perfect. That's just like the kind of place that I grew up in. Being able to get that close to your high school. So we're in a good spot. Look at our finances. We are really killing it there. Where we are not killing it is with our residential demand. We still have a ton of it. So this is my first time playing with realistic population. And let me tell you, it totally changes your building style. It's just not at all what I'm used to. It's the amount of residential that you need. It's much more realistic, much more reasonable. And I think thinking about the future, one thing that I keep thinking about personally and through some of the organizations that I'm a part of is in the future, post this 2020 craziness, we are going to be in a world where people are used to drive up, where people are used to delivery. And that might mean that there are fewer commercial spaces necessary. You might see, right here we have 1 or 2 businesses in this corner shop. This might be 8 businesses that are operating as mini distribution hubs or just collection points. And they have a warehouse out in this area and they deliver products to this area for pickup for this neighborhood. And that's the world that I think that we're entering. And it's going to be a paradigm shift that we're going to have to contend with. So I don't know how we all respond to that. It's just a different thing. So this downtown area at this point, I missed the zoning right here. So I think that you'd start to see densities potentially start to increase in this area. So we are going to take this opportunity to demolish buildings and use that as a rationale for increasing our zoning in this area. So we need more. We're not going to do that because we don't have density. This is brutal. So I guess we would just continue to build out residential, which is totally fine. We will continue to do that. We are going to stop using dirt roads though. We don't need it anymore. Our budget's in a very good spot. These people living near the landfill. So I live not too far. I guess I'd say I don't live close to a landfill, but I live close to the smell of a landfill when the wind catches it right. And I can assure you that these would not be a great place to live next to. That would certainly be a less expensive place to live. But it does have that great park next to it. So that's something. So I'm kind of just going through and we're upgrading all the roads in the city. Why don't we just do it? Now, unfortunately, this added zoning back to this area. I might just leave it and not get overly concerned about it. It's not that big of a deal. It just decreases the density over here. And I know, actually, I need to change that. So one of the reasons for that is I don't have small buildings. These 1x1 buildings. I think they're pretty hokey and kind of weird. So I thought it would be nice to remove them from the set. But what that means is if I don't remove zoning, we end up with land that's not developable, which is not, like, that's why there's a gap right here. So not a big deal, but something to be aware of and to think about as we're developing the city. And I like that because I think it's areas where we could add a little bit of landscaping and make the city feel more like this is a parcel. I know ideally I think you'd probably move the building to have it conform, or have a building that conforms better to the lot. And if I downloaded procedural objects, I could certainly play with that, but I will tell you up front, that is not my strength, and I'm not going to go there. So we are going to avoid that. I really like the way this downtown area looks and feels. You can see it's a pedestrian-oriented atmosphere and environment. And you can fly from the upstairs balcony of this building down, or scale down the side. Yeah, that guy just teleported. That's perfect. So the other thing, I mentioned that I wasn't going to keep this in super fast speedy mode, and I have certainly lied to you. So I apologize for that. I think particularly in the beginning when you're trying to reach population thresholds, at least for me, it can be super tempting to just start speeding through the game. So we've started this diagonal road, and I think we're just going to kind of mirror that over here. It'll be a feature of this area and something unique to the city, and it's still a predictable development pattern, so I'm okay with it. And we're going to go down one more block and develop out a bit on this side of town. So this is not the most exciting layout, but I don't think it would be. If this were a eastern or midwestern city, which that's what I'm fashioning this on, in considering it eastern U.S. midwestern city, this is what you'd see. I mean, maybe a little more midwestern. If this were eastern, I think you'd see a little bit more deviation, more of this kind of, horse trail sort of traffic. But this is okay too. It's not like Manhattan isn't a gigantic grid, so they exist all over the place. We're going to deviate from that after we have the core of our downtown. This is going to be a very adaptable part of the town, and I'm really excited about that because when we want to increase density or rezone, we have these nice blocks that we can, break up, redevelop, change the roadway network just slightly, and make the place feel completely different. And that's one of the things about a grid that I know that there are people that are very critical of it, but there are benefits to it. Now, one of the problems with it that I will readily admit is it's really easy to have a repetitive building pattern because it's a grid. So one of the things that having a more organic pattern requires you to do is either one of two things. You either use your space less efficiently, that generally doesn't happen, or you have to hire an architect to build the buildings because you have really unique spaces that have unique needs. Okay, so we've got this. We're going to get to at least our next building milestone. We're going to speed this thing up. We have more commercial demand than we know what to do with, but I want to keep this relatively central. I think that we're going to have a weird block of residential downtown and continue our downtown area within a block of Main. So if this is Main, we kind of have our 2 blocks of downtown behind it. We'll continue that pattern. So we are having electrical issues again, so we got to keep an eye on our budget. And this is one of the reasons I don't love playing with the budget. I always forget. I got lucky right now, and I didn't forget. But I will in the future, I promise you. So I'm going to change right now. So I'm going to upgrade these roads too. I thought I got them all. You might wonder how I'm doing this. If you are curious, you just hold down the button, your mouse button, the left mouse button, and you can upgrade multiple roads at once. It's very convenient, particularly when you build with dirt roads in the beginning. Look at these buildings. These are just fantastic. I love this. I love this. And once we have more density to add in here, it's going to look outstanding. You see that the residential demand, it's out of this world. This feels more like a city of 2000 to me. Ooh, fire. We have our two. We need more coverage because right now we just have this little tiny firehouse. See, this has 6 engines. This has 2. All right, Boomtown. And I think this is where we're going to end it today. We've unlocked a lot of stuff. We've got highways. We've got more electrical options. We've got some of our service buildings. We've got some transit. We're in a good spot. This is great. And we've got a little bit of tourism stuff going on. So we are going to do a lot in the future, but we've got the bones of our city created in a really nice little area along the water. So I'm pleased with where this ended, and I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, please consider hitting that like button if you want to follow this build, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you want to know when I release my next episode. I also want to give a huge shout out to my Patreon supporters. They help me make this content, and I appreciate them. And I also appreciate you. I hit 100,000 subscribers, and I really, I never thought that would be something that would happen to this channel. I never even thought about it as something that could happen, and I appreciate that. It means a lot to me. So thank you so much. I'm going to leave you with a brief city tour like I usually do, and I will catch you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.